now, and now I can stream that. Alright, we have the stream waiting. No, don't show my email. Let's turn that off.
I'm also enjoying a Sierra Nevada.
Which one?
Torpedo.
I'm enjoying caffeine. Extra caffeine.
Mine's some concoction.
Thread.
So bad.
As soon as Adam walks away.
Dad
I get it. I get it. I love it. He's a dad now. Yeah.
Oh my god. Alright, boys and girls. Welcome to Colasec January 2022 edition. Take it away, Adam Tim. Adam.
I think we should do like a countdown. Like you should do like the 3, 2, and then just like do the one on camera.
3, 2.
I need to get a set of the clappers.
You had that once already. Let's not do that again.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys realize this, but this image is a year old, and it feels like it's been 2 years since.
Yeah, a year and 2 days.
It's been around.
Simultaneously last week and 3 years ago that I
Right.
had it works.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm the guy behind the mask in that silly assortment of pictures.
Hi, Adam.
Tim is the guy behind the
Hi, Adam.
terrified 6-year-old.
Hi, Tim.
He's not terrified. He's having fun. We were up on a river near the Tetons.
That's what
Looks
you
like
want
he's
us to
turtling
think.
into his shirt.
Yes.
Speaking of Babby. Wah. Say hello.
Say hello to my little friend.
My little friend Nolan.
Good to see the face with the put the face with the name.
Okay. David is on the ones and twos, keeping us live and on the internet. Jeff is joining us with a mystery beer.
Ooh.
And Jessica is under the weather and still with us. Thank you, Jessica, for not spreading your germs and staying virtual.
I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that viruses can go through the wire. So
How
y'all think
all
you're
would be.
safe.
I'm certain I'm not safe. I have one of these.
Little petri dish.
Yes, a tiny petri dish.
A living
All right.
petri dish.
Next slide. Not sure how you found us if you don't know the information that's on this slide, but if you don't know about our Slack and our Twitter account, and are we even using the Google Groups anymore? Is that still a thing?
You must not be, but I sent an email out today about the meetup and the details.
No, I forget the email is back-ended by the forums.
Well,
That's
yeah,
fair
it's just you join the forum to be a member to receive emails.
Well,
That's
and
all
don't
it
we
is.
have some of our group invites for this?
Yeah,
Based on that?
yeah. Well, it's one large collective group that I can invite all at once. So that's how all these wonderful people got here.
I'd like to point out we've probably been doing this for 7 years at this point. We're still trying to figure out the details of whether or not we use Google Groups.
We don't know how it works.
We don't know how.
Try googling Google
We're
Groups and figure out
professionals.
how this shit works. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But it's all secure.
No.
No. Our passwords might be 128-bit, but that's about it.
If you're imbibing, which I think most of us are, share what you're drinking with us on Slack so we can heckle or send kudos or whatever. I don't know. I don't think we do much heckling on the beer channel, but we should start.
I mean, usually they're all pretty good. There's not a lot of heckling that.
Alright, Tim,
There's
let
not
you
a
take
lot
over.
of opportunities for
There's
that.
a reason that I don't ever share what I'm drinking.
Are you the Bud Light of our organization?
I'm the girly beer of the organization.
What's wrong with girly beers?
Nothing's wrong with girly beer. I'm a girl. I drink girly beer. It's yummy.
I'm a girl. What's wrong with that?
You got Mackenzie with
Exactly,
the White Claw.
you're a girl.
Is that a girly drink or is that?
That's
cool?
a headache in a can is what that is.
Just no red stripe.
Mm.
You had a little too much of that, I take it.
Yeah. Enough to last me a few years.
It's recency bias.
You mean Yaman?
No problem.
All right. Well, I don't know how to segue into mental health hackers, but here we go. If we are in the dark times or the dark months of the year where the sun's not here.
I thought you were talking about COVID and realized, oh no, it's winter.
It is the dark
Winter,
times.
yeah, where you can't go outside and get your vitamin D as much, and you're probably at this point with COVID sitting at home, and the washing machine's gonna buzz in the background while you're trying to talk. And
Hey, so my facialist told me that you can get UV rays from the computer screen. I don't believe her.
Okay. Moving on. So it's a dark time of the month, right? And we started this site because we did lose a member right around this time, right? Last year, year before.
Just over a year.
Yeah, just over a year. So, like this, I have noticed, especially during these months, that I really have to pay attention to my mental state because not getting out of the house. Tennessee, we just got dumped on with snow, so I was inside for all of like Saturday, Sunday, and Monday with a 3-day weekend. So it's very important to make sure you get out. And if you don't want to get out and still want to be on a computer, at least if you're struggling, go to the website mentalhealthhackers.org. They've got a lot of great stuff there to help you out. Who added the transition? I like it. So the news. Let's get into some news here. We'll talk about the vulnerability that shall not be named. I think everybody's very aware of this. I don't know if there's really anything really to cover.
There's not enough flame in that picture.
Hey, has anyone had doors knocked on by government 3-letter agencies asking about their responses yet?
Doors?
A day late and $1 short, yeah.
So you have, because national 3-letter agencies in one of my environments after SolarWinds happened, came around and they were like, we want to know what you did in response to the SolarWinds. And so I'm waiting for Log4j. I was curious if anyone had heard anything
I know
yet.
CISA has mobilized some sort of coordinated federal response where they're tracking what various agencies and contractors are doing about it.
That's a 4-letter agency, by the way.
I'm aware. I'm just saying that's the only rumblings I have heard.
And then they were immediately ridiculed to pieces by a collective form of cybersecurity professionals.
I mean, yeah.
Link,
Well,
please. Link, please. Mackenzie.
I'll go find it.
I
I know
need to
when I
see
was
if there's
at
some
a-
new insults.
I don't
No, when I
know
was at a-
how. I appreciate Sis's role as an advisory and standard setting body. Them trying to coordinate any sort of federal level cyber threat incident response effort across all of the federal government and its contractors is Looney Tunes. It's just, there's too many moving parts for any government agency to do that without tons of authority and tanks and, you know, people boots on the ground, and they ain't got none of that. So
Then
Yeah,
they
I
should
imagine
just
that.
go home and step aside.
Well, I think
I'm not
I
saying
think-
that. Just don't pretend that they're gonna come in as cyber FEMA.
Yeah.
I know when I was at a DoD contractor after SolarWinds, we got asked about if we had SolarWinds in our environment, but not necessarily what our response was, which I thought was funny.
Yes, we have it. What do you want us to do? Silence.
Yeah,
Or
unfortunately.
they have like a special knock when they get to the door, you know. Oh wait, that's them now.
You're supposed to invite them in for Oreo cookies and milk, I think. Sorry, old joke.
that would get
No,
me. I don't know about.
You're not fooling me. I know how vampires work.
All right, is there anything else we want to talk about this one? I tried to pitch this as a presentation for this month, and I was immediately. It was very nice to see people try to nicely, but I could have just been told to get bent because there were enough people that were just over this thing that we didn't want to talk about it.
We can talk about it in February. The wounds are still fresh, man. I'm still
So
bleeding.
let's do this. Does anyone have any questions about Log4j?
Don't you mean Log4j?
I like that. Cut one syllable.
All right, moving on.
I'm gonna take that as a no.
Yep. So, Ubiquity former employee charged with hacking. This was almost the skating dog story of the month. I decided that there was another one that recently came out that was just even worse. But apparently, if you guys remember, there was a Ubiquity breach that happened at some point last year where what did they lose? They lost, was it like credentials or something, like customer information?
No, just only the admin credentials to every fucking Ubiquity device that's ever been published.
Well,
Nothing
anyways,
big.
so they started incident response, and then found out that one of the people on their incident response teams was the guy, or the FBI had to find this out, was one of the guys, or was the guy that conducted the breach from the inside. And I think we're going to start seeing, like, we've seen quite a few of these with like Tesla and some other stuff, but this guy, like, I thought I had notes in here, so I'm kind of trying to wing it here so anybody can help me with some of the details. But yeah, he was put on the incident response, and I think his IP address to his VPN was how the FBI essentially found out who he was.
Yeah, he was pretending to help remediate the thing, and he's the one that stole the. It was an AWS secret, I thought, that he stole.
Right. Yeah, kind of easy to have a breach if one of your internal employees, which is also a reason to, you know, treat your employees maybe a little bit better, or just make sure you're hiring good people. This is probably one of the good news items that I think would be. It's a really interesting way of recovering from a ransomware attack, where a hotel chain was hit with ransomware, and they decided to. They were already in the process of switching to Chrome OS, and instead of trying to combat the ransomware, they just went ahead and flipped everything over to Chrome OS. Secure. No more ransomware.
That's I need to go and find that article then. That's hilarious.
It's in the slide deck, by the way. Yeah, it's just an interesting way, and I think I was listening to Risky Business this morning, and they were talking about a guy that like three years ago brought this up as a way to combat ransomware attacks, which is why don't you just use Chrome OS? And he was laughed out of the room. But I think he gets a he gets a little vindication here, right?
If your environment is flat enough in its technology stack that everything works in a browser, then sure, go nuts.
Yeah.
Well, which is what's happening more and more. I think a lot more
Yeah.
businesses are starting, especially hotels. Makes total sense, right? I mean,
Sure.
just access the how to check check guests in.
I wonder how like Target would have gone down if they had been on like all browsers instead of, you know.
Yeah. I think there's some PCI components that they'd have to get through to be able to accomplish something.
The hotel's got to have the same thing, right? They take payment cards.
Yeah, but
yeah,
we
can speculate later.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting thought.
Target has internal cards though. Remember, part of the issue with the Target cards was the like internal Target store cards, not like the Visa backed or MasterCard backed ones, but like the Target store cards were linked to checking accounts. That was one of the major issues in the credit card breach or in the Target breach.
I forgot that. It's been too many years.
Yeah,
too many years.
Useless knowledge for the win.
All right, so on to the.
It's an ice skating dog, not a skateboarding dog.
Yeah, it's a skating dog. The skating dog story of the week is, and this recently came out. A man tasked preventing fraud at DHS defrauds the government. So here's the too long didn't read version. A former top watchdog for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security pleaded guilty on Friday to defrauding the government by stealing proprietary software and sensitive databases, which he used to develop a commercial case management system that he offered for sale to the federal agencies. This was conducted, I think, between 2011 and 2013. He also worked for like the U.S. Postal Service before working for DHS. And like this was all the way back in like 2011, 2013, but maintained contacts that got him a lot of this information. So
I don't know if you did this intentionally, but there's a very much there's an insider threat bent to the news articles you've selected here.
Yeah, these are the things that just have popped up, particularly in the last 2 months, as a matter of fact. Outside of things have really been taken over by Log4Shell.
Hey, Tim, do you know how the dude got caught?
Yeah, he was selling the government stuff that they already own. He used, possessed, and transferred stolen DHS, OIG, and USPS OIG documents and information.
So he made somebody mad enough, and they finally paid attention to him.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, he actually got in trouble with the U.S. Postal Service for. Hold on, this is funny. That's what I'm saying. Just go read the article. I'll drop the article in our chat. It's a great read. I actually almost just wanted to paste and just read the entire article. Edwards resigned from the U.S. Postal Service and served as Inspector General for the U.S. Postal Service. Oh wait, no. So he resigned from DHS in December of 2013 after facing allegations of abuse of power, including misspending funds, engaging in nepotism, and making his staff do his graduate school homework.
Amazing.
So yes, he pissed off a lot of people.
He pissed off some folks. They started digging. Internal audit got involved, and then went, well.
Yeah. I don't know if they've called out how they found out about it.
Yeah, that was just me guessing, by the way.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know if they actually have it listed here on how he actually got caught. But yeah, he pleaded guilty too. So yeah, insider threat is a thing. All right, what other news items haven't we talked about that need to be talked about? And it's been 2 months, by the way.
How about the FSB taking down our evil? That's kind of odd.
Did they take him down though, or did they just put him into early retirement?
I mean, they probably hired him, honestly, but I mean, they say they took him down and seized all their money. Well, not all their money, but a lot of money.
It's actually really curious timing, because on the 11th, a bunch of Russia state actors and Russia-linked activity groups started widespread like cyber warfare on like a bunch of different Ukrainian organizations.
Yep.
So there's like a joint FBI, CIA, NSA, CISA alert, but a ton of threat actors targeting all different types of Ukrainian businesses and critical infrastructure, and then like 5 days later, they're like, "Oh yeah, we took down a ransomware group or whatever."
You're saying it's like a cover-up story to
Yeah, that's what it
make
feels
the other
like.
one minor.
Yeah.
If I had tinfoil hat on, that's what I would.
Yeah.
My thing
Speaking
is,
of,
what's the motive? Like, oh, go ahead.
sorry, now I got to find my mute button. Yeah, I think CISA, if I'm not mistaken, right at 5 or right after 5, just released a "Hey, here's what you should do" kind of thing, or an announcement for that, if I'm not mistaken. But
Any other news? Guess not. Okay, moving on. Are we doing the cool wall this week, or are we skipping it? Do you want to do it?
Did you prepare for it? I didn't.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, we still have other stuff on the cool wall that needs to be.
How are we doing on time?
We're at 24
We're good.
minutes in, and we started late.
Sure.
Hold on. All right, let's reshare.
While he's pulling that up, did y'all see the thing about the dipshits who bought the NFT for Dune?
Yes.
Only to realize that it wasn't the thing they thought it was. They dropped like 2.3 million or something stupid on this NFT, and then went, "Oh, that's not the original Dune." And they were acting like they had the copyright to Dune. Frank Herbert's estate's going to have some things to say about that, I think.
Yeah, gross misunderstanding of copyright.
Guys, it's on the blockchain. Your government organization has no authority here.
All right, cool wall. What do you want to go over? We got Lock for Show, B-side, Stuck, Twitch, and Hafnium.
Wait.
I'm struggling to remember why we put Twitch on the list.
Because they had a breach recently. Like
Was it the finance breach where it linked the total finances and
yeah,
every
it was
streamer?
so yeah, it was a guy that was pissed off about the bot, the hate bots that would like attack Twitch streamers, and that Twitch wasn't doing anything about it, so he got into all their things and started releasing documents.
Yeah, now people refer to Twitch streamers as their number. Like, oh, number 11's like getting shit talked by number 47.
Yeah, there was a torrent of the information out there, but
it was widely available.
Yeah. You can just go find paste bins of it everywhere.
I was surprised to see what that ninja kid was making. He's making a lot of money.
He was like number 2 or something like that.
That's the professional gamer, right? That does like a bunch
of with
the
blue headband, man. He's if I was him, I would retire already.
Yeah.
I think that belongs in uncool. I mean, in the long run, he's done no harm to Twitch. He's harmed the Twitch community.
Is the Julian Assange, whatever you say about of Twitch,
and changed absolutely nothing. Like, has Twitch modified their policies or operational parameters in any way?
Nope. I'd agree with you. I might even say it's seriously uncool because it kind of like that. That was the whole point. Is that Twitch was doing something wrong, so they released Twitch data. And it didn't really do anything. And to me, it was streamers. Good for them if they're making that much money. That's another source of income.
I think I'm leaning towards you, Tim, with the seriously uncool. I mean, it sounds like exposing that data would do nothing more than help the hate bots anyway. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, oh, we know who to target better now. So, I mean, congratulations, you defeated yourself.
It was like fun. as like a consumer, just like, but it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't change anything. Like, oh no, some streamers make a lot of money, but like everyone already knew that, right?
Well, there's some source code in there too that people thought might lead to a bigger breach, right?
I think so, but I don't know. I don't think anything materialized out of that.
Yeah. I mean, I know there was source code in it, but like you said, I don't know if anything came out of it.
That's a terrible label to put on that.
What do you suggest?
I mean, I'm fine with leaving crypto on it, but
Crypto, not encryption. Crypto.
yeah,
Crypto. Okay.
Things that
And-
have been featured in a Saturday Night Live skit.
yeah, file it in a bin under permanently disgustingly uncool and leave it at that. Yeah, see, you've got coin in there already.
I know. But I don't like the software tag. I don't like that software tag for something that's crypto.
Excellent.
Why don't you
So
have a data leak?
we're adding it to permanently disgustingly uncool NFTs.
Like a data leak tag.
Name me a value, a purpose or value.
I don't see
that
any.
NFTs
Yeah,
provide.
I am with you.
Consumer value.
I mean,
like
the only thing they provide is parting morons from lots of fucking money.
Did you hear about the guy that created an NFT that if you went in, like it changed based on how you access the NFT. So if you did it the easiest, the simple way, it was just a poop emoji. There's apparently a good article that I recently heard about that that was just trashing NFTs. I can't remember if we shared it in the Slack channel or if I got that from somewhere at work. But yeah, I've heard other people talking about it. So, all right, on to the speaker if I can get the right screen.
Yeah, good luck.
Great image.
That's fantastic.
Who's doing the intro? I don't think we.
You can tell that our OSINT game has fallen off since Josh left.
It's almost how do you say artful. Just insert caption here.
Is this guy doing a funnel right now?
Hey, do y'all remember that one time that David pulled up a picture of the speaker and the speaker wasn't even on there?
I do remember that actually. I somehow I found the wrong. I went down a rabbit hole and found the wrong like Joe Schmo, whoever it was, and then Jessica spent 2 minutes googling and found an amazing picture that was super embarrassing. And I failed, and I admitted it.
Only to save that information for 9 months to bring it up again randomly.
Oh, it's been more than we've come full term like 7 times since that happened. It's been more than 9 months.
It was online. It was definitely within the last 2 years. So, fair game.
All right.
We have 10-year life expectancy of data around here.
I don't know if that's the right picture or not. I'm just looking. Eric Anderson's a very.
You just grabbed the first Eric Anderson you could find.
There's a lot of them.
I can try and look like that.
Yes.
We're gonna need you to shave your beard during the intermission.
I almost did last week, but I'll need some coloring too.
That's not gone well, Tim.
Good job, Tim. Thank you for trying. Eric joins us. We're gonna have a brief intermission in a moment, but Eric joins us from Atlantic Data Security. He is hot off the presses. Been around the beat for a while. He's going to talk to us about how to sell security within the organization. So I appreciate Atlantic Data Security for sponsoring us tonight, and of course providing us a presentation and some expertise in this field. So we will take a 5-minute intermission, refresh your beverage. We'll get Eric spun up to present, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. right, folks. I hope you got your beverage. We are back with Eric Anderson from Atlantic Data Security. So take it away, Eric.
Sure. Hi. Thanks. Good to be here. It's been an interesting start to this. I apologies up front. I am new to the group. I'm enjoying what I'm hearing and seeing so far. This is pretty cool. I don't want to present anything canned and dry and pre-rehearsed or any of that. So what we're going to do is I have some slides, but they're really complete transparency here. They're just my notes. They're an outline of ideas and topics and kind of thoughts towards having a conversation that I think and hope is a little bit different than what you typically expect from a vendor. I don't even like referring to myself that way as a vendor because I still don't see myself as a vendor.
I hesitated to use that word as well. I was like, we'll just put it out there and go with it.
What do you teach?
Product specific, historically and primarily around Checkpoint, actually.
Now, see, that'll impress them, Eric. You understand?
Will it?
Woo!
Because I've worked with Checkpoint for going on about 25 years and known a lot of people there, and it was about 22 years ago we had so much demand for knowledge that I said, I know this, I'll share it. So I started teaching, and they've always had a channel for their teaching. So channel partners could be training partners. So we've always done that. And I, at first, hated it, was nervous, but eventually you get used to it. And then because I've worked with it for that long and I know it well, that's what I can teach it in my sleep pretty much. New courseware coming up for next month. So it's a new version, new rewrite, and I have to relearn all the content, but conceptually, I know it, so I'm comfortable. And again, if I haven't come across it when I'm asked a question, I have enough resources and leverage and people I can bounce things off of to get answers for them. But every now and then another vendor will come up and have something they want delivered and taught, and I'm always reluctant because I'd rather teach from a position of knowledge than study the curriculum the night before and then kind of just regurgitate it. We've all been to presentations or classes where somebody was reading their slides to us, and I hate to be that guy, so I try and avoid it and actually try to know what I'm talking about if I can. And that's kind of what led to the topic for tonight. Again, I'll segue it back around a little bit. A lot of what I do is within teaching, presenting, speaking. My official job is really more as we're changing our title to field security architect, but I'm an engineer, and for those of us, which I think is most of us who are engineers, you'll never not be an engineer. It's in the blood. It's in I'm too left-brained to not be an engineer. If you see and think logically, that's what you are. How you use that and what you do with it can vary a little bit. And more officially now, I'm part of our sales side of our organization, which I say kind of like I kind of cringe a little bit myself when I say it, but it's because I can talk the talk and relate to it. But I really see my role within our organization as bridging the gap between sales and engineering. I'm in the meetings on both sides. I understand both sides and can kind of help bring them closer together as we've grown as a company. The gap was getting bigger and bigger. So let's make sure the sides are working well together and being functional. We see the same thing within the relationship with customers and vendors. And again, we're not really a vendor. In my terminology, we'd be, I hate this term VAR as well. It's an evil acronym. Acronyms themselves are evil, but VAR is one that's just so often abbreviated to reseller, which frankly is the least important and least interesting and differentiating part of what we do. It's the value add is where our engineering actually comes in. You don't need engineers to resell. You need a bunch of SKUs and part numbers and prices, and you can resell. To add value is a whole different piece. And some of that is through teaching and educating the users and doing knowledge transfer through implementation and support. But I like to take that a couple steps back and say, even in the selling process, we want to make sure we're selling the right things. And that's a big part of what we try to do with our clients is make sure they're not going to throw good money after something that isn't going to do what they need. Even if they come to us and say, I want X, Y, or Z, I'd rather ask them why. You want that hammer to hammer in a bunch of screws into your deck that you're trying to build. It'll work, but you'd be better off buying a screwdriver. And that's one of my analogies I use, that you could do it, but I'd rather ask you, well, what are you trying to do? We're building a deck. What resources and materials do you have? Well, I have a bunch of wood and a bunch of screws. And I'd say, aha, the hammer might work, but let's talk about screwdrivers. As opposed to if you told me you had a bunch of nails and you wanted a screwdriver, I'd say, no, that's not going to work at all. You need a hammer. So it's understanding the problems, the challenges, what we have to work with to try and optimize the solution and get the most value out of whatever you're trying to do. So it sounds hokey, and that's, again, why they kind of pulled me into sales. I could take the engineering ideas and concepts and relate them to more polished sounding.
It's like borderline dad jokes.
So,
I got those too.
So just as the quick poll across the group, how many people have used a screwdriver as a hammer before?
Wait, a screwdriver is a hammer, or is there a hammer as a screwdriver?
A screwdriver is a hammer.
Okay, yeah, I've definitely done that.
But I'm definitely not going to sell you one of those for that purpose.
Yeah, you just flip it around and just start banging it.
But hammering screws is regular practice. Sorry.
It doesn't work with the big nails.
No, or the little screwdrivers.
That's the breaking point.
But anyway, so when I refer to kind of who or what we are, we're a value-added reseller that we're services heavy, is what I'm proud to be able to say. Is we focus on engineering talent. I think at this point, just over half of our company is engineering, as opposed to being sales and ops heavy and all that. And that's not even counting myself, because I'm officially part of our sales team now. But I would want to put myself on that side, and that's who I associate with and who I hang out with. But Joe aside, Joe.
Well, hey, I have an MBA in accounting, which makes me a little unusual in this world too. So
you got to be a little left brain for that too.
Nice.
But anyway, so I came in here and again, in the interest of full disclosure, because you'll see right through it if I don't anyway, I didn't really prepare for this long in advance, because we originally had another speaker planned. Things changed with COVID. Everything's volatile and changing nowadays. And originally I could have talked about CMMC like he was going to, but that would have been fake. So the idea was let's change gears a little bit and talk about something that I've talked about in various discussions, some presentations in various ways, but it was really more, let's kind of saw this opportunity as a way to talk about something that I think all of us, even internally here, we struggle with at a conceptual level. And then some of the specific presentations I've given and conversations I've had kind of feed up into this. And that's the idea of, especially if we're already engineers and we get it, we understand the needs, the challenges, the things we should be doing and need to be doing. Sometimes convincing those that need to be convinced can be very, very challenging for various reasons. And that's, I think, a very broad topic that we could probably spend hours or days on. We'll try and do it very quickly. And I'm not going to tell you things that you don't know. I like to really just kind of switch perspectives a little bit. And there's two big words I like to focus on. I have some note slides. I might bounce to them at one point or another, but perspective and empathy, I think, are two key things that if we can have those or be flexible with those, it helps make us more successful because it makes us more relatable, helps us figure out how to make the arguments we need to make. When you go to a purchasing agent or a CXO or whoever it is you need to go to for approval for some spend you want to make, don't just go there with here's all the facts, here's all the things that we need this for, but try and understand what drives them, what motivates them, understand their perspective, that they are measured and counted on, whether it's right or not, on the bottom line numbers, on the SEC filings every quarter. The street's going to call for their head if they didn't make money, for Wall Street that month, that quarter. So you have to understand what drives them. And if you can have that perspective and be flexible with the perspective and then walk back to what you're trying to do and your initiative and your goals, sometimes it's easier to find a path there as opposed to just the traditional, well, we need this because of X, Y, and Z. So I will bounce to one of those slides, sort of. You don't need to know about me. But having that perspective, I think can be, or being aware of the perspective that we're coming from, but being aware of the perspective of our audience when we're trying to go to that person to get approval for whatever budgetary needs we have, shaping it in a way that they can hear it and understand it is incredibly helpful. Most of these come from specific examples, and kind of I tried to walk back into getting them into thoughts that I could put into notes in an outlined form. But many of those people that are responsible for those decisions that need to make the approvals have been at organizations, especially large, let's say, I don't want to say legacy, but older companies and organizations. Schools are a big one. We do a lot with education. They've been around a long time, and cybersecurity is relatively new. It's not something they had to worry about years ago. It wasn't one of those expenses. With more traditional companies, money-making organizations, companies that produce something, they have their cost centers and they have their revenue centers. And this is not a revenue center. Cybersecurity is kind of an extension or an add-on to IT, which they realized we'll go back 20, 30 years ago, somewhere in that span, when they had to start spending more on IT because the internet became a necessity to doing business. They realized, well, okay, yeah, we need the internet, but the internet opens up new avenues of revenue as well. As much as there's a cost to it, it's allowing us to make more. So it was easier to offset and kind of justify the spend in increased IT presence. Cybersecurity's never been that. And I think part of the perspective we need to have is that cybersecurity is a defense-only position. It's a cost. There's no intrinsic value or realizable revenue that comes from being secure. It's really the other way around. And I also love analogies, and I guess it's that left brain part of me that likes to try and think of things in different ways. And the athlete in me, my wife jokes that I got into sports so I wouldn't be such a nerd, and I said no, I got into computers so I wouldn't be such a dumb jock. But the sports fan or athlete in me likes to make a comparison to easiest is, I think, baseball. Cybersecurity is like playing baseball, but you're the home team and you only play the top of every inning, which means you're in the field. The other team's at bat. You never get up to bat in cybersecurity. You're always just trying to defend. You can never score. You can't get any points. The best you can hope for is a shutout. And in baseball, of course, that never happens. You keep playing until somebody has the lead. Other sports don't translate as well because you at least can score. Even if you're on defense in football, you can still score. At cybersecurity, we're always on defense. And that can be a little bit daunting and psychologically challenging when you kind of realize that we never get a real win. Our biggest win, again, is a shutout. We didn't let the other guys score. And that's the most success we can kind of hope for and root for and try for. And having that perspective, even on ourselves and our own jobs as cybersecurity engineers and professionals, helps you kind of get a grip on something that for years I'd struggled with this. And I've talked to a lot of people over the last few years, especially, that we kind of realized that, yeah, we're never going to beat it. We're never going to finish. It's never going to be, okay, yeah, we're secure, we're done.
No way, don't say that.
Well, but then I flip that again, flip the perspective a little bit and say, yeah, but if you look at it the right way, that's a good thing because we're still employed.
Right.
If it were ever done, we'd have to figure out what to do next.
So yeah, we can't fully automate everything because then we won't have anything to do anymore.
Yeah, AI needs help and work and programming too. You know.
We were talking about something similar just a couple weeks ago, I think. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say I work in higher ed for the security office at Virginia Tech, and we have had an interesting approach. We have had cybersecurity for quite some time, but we also have a cybersecurity lab. And so you talked about not really having a value add. There are constructive ways that we've been able to take that lab infrastructure, pair it with professionals working, in the industry, and then partnering with mostly the Army, but we've had some Navy and Air Force people who have come through our lab, and they have benefited from the resources that we have available, the openness that we have to work on their PhDs, which then they turn around and go back and start teaching at like West Point and other areas within that. So it's been a really neat and very nice relationship to have. And it's kind of built some strong things in us being able now to start pivoting into really providing data and things for true, honest research within the university communities. And we've got a couple projects we're working on with that as well.
That's outstanding. That's really cool. I actually, another piece that wasn't mentioned about me, I'm actually from Boston, west of Boston in the suburbs, but we have a lot, we're a hotbed for higher ed, and MIT is responsible for a lot of really cool research and cool things that happen at higher ed all over the country and in the world. I think that's kind of an anomaly. You know, we talk about education, K through 12 is one thing, but higher ed has this ability to do a lot of work and a lot of research under the guise, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all, of education, and sometimes monetize that as well and get credit where credit is due and help fund more projects. So that's an interesting perspective on it. This is again why I'm not trying to tell you here are the facts. I want to be wrong. I want to learn. So that's an interesting perspective to add to that discussion.
Yeah, and it's been something that has set us apart and has brought other universities to talk to us about how we're doing it, what we're doing it. My boss likes to talk about it as a medical learning institution in that light, where you go in and you're learning and you're working by doing. And so,
well, I mean, that's the whole black hat, red hat. You know, when you get the challenges and the competitions that you have, that's part of that too. Is let's have guys, attack or defend, and the ultimate goal from that is to learn from it. And sometimes it ends up with a new practice or product or just knowledge that people gain through those exercises. It sounds like you're taking that to another level of let's figure out how we can actually take this and help others leverage it without having to put in the time that nobody has, which is one of those things we find in the corporate world is a huge motivator as well. But I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. Again, more of a fluid discussion than a presentation, I guess. Which of course makes it hard for me to know where I was and where I wanted to go next.
Sorry about that.
No, it's my own fault because again, I don't really have that much of a plan other than, talking about perspective as one of those important things to have. So for you, for education, perspective is very different anyway. It's a very challenging environment because you've got notoriously large numbers of devices and users that you really don't have the right or authority to control. And one of those perspectives I got many, many years ago in education, especially with K through 12, when schools wanted to or even had to get their public federal funding, they had to start blocking URLs and say, yep, if you're K through 12, we have to control what sites you're going to, and that was fine, and that's how you do things. And once you flip to higher education, it's a little bit different because now they're supposed to be adults, supposed to be a little bit more free and learn from mistakes and learn from the real world. But also in a really interesting dynamic in higher ed, if you look at an org chart, where whether it's in K-12 or in the corporate world, you have your president, your board, your CXOs, your whatever, all the way down through to the lowly users, where we have the masses of the users at the bottom of that pyramid in the org chart. In higher ed, you take that lowest rung of the pyramid, the students, they're actually the employers. They're the masses, the tens of thousands that you have to protect against. They're your biggest attack vector, but they're the ones that are paying the bills. In every other org chart, you say, hey, you're an employee at will. If you don't like our rules, our restrictions, our policy, go get a job somewhere else. But in higher ed, you can't do that. You're like, no, please stay here. Please stay at our school. This is what, we'll do what we have to cater to you. And that means giving you all the access and all the permissions and privileges you want. And yet we have to try and secure you at the same time, which I understand and I see it with a lot of our clients, is a huge challenge. But I think, again, a different perspective to have, which I wasn't even planning to talk about, is that flip of who's ultimately responsible and who do you have to please. And higher ed is a unique challenge there that I've seen in a funny way. But understanding that when you're going into it helps you kind of plan your arguments or figure out which way you have to approach discussions and those justifications. What else did I want to say about perspective? I'm looking at the notes I had. I think that's pretty much what it was. We know, again, when we're talking about, and I actually had another slide here, the challenges we talk about getting buy-in or getting selling security to those who don't typically work in the space. It's cost. We know budget spending is a huge one. That's there in everything that we have to justify. But often it's the challenges around just actually making things secure, and the hassles it creates for our users, having to have secure, strong authentication, having to log in multiple times. There's all these physical manifestations of, but that's such a pain in the butt, pain in the arse or whatever that we're constantly butting up against that. And how can we help with that, or how can we justify it or make it not seem as bad? And one of the things I've liked to say over the recent years, when I kind of realized how to put this into words, is that ignorance might be an explanation. I didn't know that ransomware was a thing, and that clicking that link in an email from my friend who said it had pictures of me that I should look at, that I didn't know that was a bad idea. Okay, that explains how we were infected, but it doesn't excuse it on so many levels. Average user should know better. Email administrator should have some sort of protections in place. IT, cybersecurity teams, whatever we have within whatever organization, should have done a little bit more to protect, using technology and using products to keep that from happening. So there's plenty of explanations due to just not knowing and being ignorant. But it's never an excuse for letting things slide and letting things happen. And a lot of that is solved just by better education and knowledge transfer and sharing, which I think we've, as a whole cybersecurity community, gotten a lot better with. The media's helped, and high profile issues are helpful, but I think there's sometimes there's still that old school mentality of, oh, that's a cybersecurity thing, I don't know anything about that, I'll skip that story, or I'll wait for somebody to tell me what to do about it.
Yeah, there's a lot more in the news and in the media, but there's not really that effort, because it's 24/7 news. There's not an effort to like teach. It's just like there's very few organizations. SANS has their monthly, I forget what they call it, like you know poor man's news or whatever you call that, where they kind of talk about, here's the basic information. Here's, we can talk on this level to people that aren't trained in IT. But it is hard when you have these big. I mean, we joked about 5G earlier. That's the headline that gets circulated, when we all know that's really dumb. But
Yeah.
when things like Log4j go out, it's really hard to appreciate what that is and why it's important. But there's never, I feel like a lot of these issues, when you're dealing with cybersecurity, is there's never, nobody ever has like um, lessons learned at the end of it. We all just got so jaded by what happened, or the next thing happens, and we're like, oh shit, we got to go fix this right now. There's never, it doesn't feel like there's ever lessons learned. So we go and like clean up, and like, how do we get better next time? It's just like we're always we're getting out of the trench, and then all of a sudden we're right back in the trench, and it's really difficult to navigate that.
Yeah, I think there's always, again, as engineers, just the mentality of us engineers, stereotypical or not, we have a tendency to say, told you so. When this happens, we say, hey, here's an example of why all that stuff I've been telling you we should be doing and investing in and paying attention to, here's what happens if you don't. So listen to me now.
Yeah, and it's
okay, sure.
Listen for about 95 seconds and then realize that it's the same noise that they heard the last time they listened to you, and they turn on to a different station and don't listen anymore.
Yeah.
Hey. Never waste a good prod down.
I was
Yep.
just contemplating the difficulty, because the things we want are the good hygiene things, right? The change control, the timely and rapid deployment of patches that we've fully tested, and like all the in a perfect world, if I didn't have to do much as a security engineer, we would have all of our patches deployed on time. There would be no oddball systems that are running a version of Windows NT because that's the only thing that this software runs on or whatever. And I would have all of my users perfectly trained and comfortable with the concept of phishing emails and like, oh shit, I clicked the link I shouldn't have, and their workstation would instantly get locked down and instantly go into forensic mode. All of that is
A robot
stupendously
would come
expensive.
slap them on the wrist. Yeah.
Right. All of that is stupendously expensive. And from an executive chair, all they see is the price tag on all that and go, I ain't fucking doing that. It's way cheaper to just do this over here. And I think we do a very poor job as an industry of articulating the price tag on the crises, right? Log4j has been a tremendous cost to lots of organizations in scrambling and figuring out where it is and how to patch it and contacting all their vendors and all stuff that should be routine and easy to do, but it's not because we weren't prepared for it in the front end, because we didn't know how to articulate how much it's going to cost to respond to the disaster versus how much it costs just to build the infrastructure right from the front end. And
Well,
if you make that case, if you put those two numbers together, and a CEO says, "Nah, well, we're going to respond to the disaster," that's all you can do.
And that's what a lot of CEOs are taking, and CFOs to that point. It's not even necessarily the CEO; it's the CFO, right? I've run into situations where it's like, well, it costs this at the front end to go with this solution versus this solution, but I was like, but the man hours on this other cheaper solution is going to overtake the man hours on this other solution that is a higher cost. But they don't want to look at that. They look at the front end, and the man hour cost isn't even factored in, which is disappointing. But like,
I'm almost wondering if we need to invite some CFOs to Colasect.
But that goes to that thought of perspective, is no going in where they're going to be coming from and what they're going to use as an argument.
Yep.
And try and build that into the initial presentation of, I know that you're motivated by this, and that's fine. I get it. We need to do this. Let's find a way in the middle that we can all win. And that goes to another aspect that I like talking about when it comes to dealings with sometimes just with VARs and vendors and clients or customers. But know how, have a result or have a plan of how everyone can win, how you can appease whoever it is you have to appease. I can accomplish what I need to accomplish, and we can ultimately help the company, help the organization be protected proactively. And that's one of those tough words, is proactive. To that point, it goes back. Go ahead. I had to write down the name of that book when you shared it, when I saw it on your camera.
Don't buy this book.
Okay.
Do not buy this book. I'm like not even kidding you. I would return this book solely for the fact of, like, I don't want to pay the authors. Like, I want them to get no royalties off of me. This is a book that is part of the course materials for my doctoral studies. And this book, something that Adam said, and this book makes me super ragey. My entire cohort was mocking me because I've been Jessica Rage ever since the semester started, which has only been like a week, right? So new record.
This is the way.
One of the things.
Welcome to Colasect.
One of the things that this book really upsets me on is the authors, and I think that it's just their style of writing. They're making a whole bunch of inflammatory comments up front to engage in the reader, like, oh, read me because I made a super inflammatory comment, and then they kind of like back off of it later on in the book. One of their
by the end of the book, you're going to like it.
No, I'm not. No, I'm too grudgy for that. So they highlight the story in the beginning, where it is basically their premise is, Adam said, we want all of our users to know all of the things, to be able to pre-detect all of the phishing attacks, blah, 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 blah. Their premise is, there's absolutely no way that our users are ever going to detect all the phishing attacks, because emails are boring and they're just trying to get through as fast as possible, and hovering over a link takes entirely too long. So we shouldn't bother to attempt to train our users. We should not have the expectation that our users will act safely, act securely, we should always expect that, and we should never expect them to do anything but the risky thing. And I'm like, I mean, at this point, I'm listening to it on audiobook, so I'm arguing back. But this
Word conversation. Yeah.
It's just it's the idea that, oh, don't put any trust or faith in your users. They're gonna mess up. They can't do any better. And it rolls around to this story where a Chinese healthcare company lost billions of records because apparently one of their workers lost a USB stick. Well, the authors of the book interviewed this worker and come to say it's not really the user's fault that they lost a USB stick with all the records on it, because they were carrying around the USB stick since IT would not give them access to Excel. They would not install Excel on their computer. And I'm like, well, y'all obviously stopped your line of questioning too early. Was there a legitimate reason that this user was not granted having Excel installed on their computer? Were they provided a comparable program that they just didn't care for? Was there this, that, or the other thing, right? Like no background. Oh, we asked them and they said that they didn't do it because they don't have Excel installed. So
And
obviously
if they shouldn't
it's
have had
IT's
access,
fault.
how did they get it on a thumb drive?
Dude.
Jessica,
And I
this is
just-
for you. Hold on.
I smell insufficient controls.
Stoicism has helped me tremendously in the security community.
Dude,
Well,
it's a dumb book. Dumb book.
Well,
Don't buy it.
Jessica, to your point, what the authors are saying, I mean, I feel like there's a trust but verify kind of theme here in that, yeah, I mean, I agree that users may not, no, you should not use your users as your only layer of control, right? However, they are part of the strategy. I mean, that is, so I disagree with the authors in some respect and agree with them on others. They're part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Well, this is what's the concept of enabling the business, right? Not being the people that say no, but finding a way to find some sort of median that works for everybody.
I would push back on Jessica's initial
rage. Be careful.
Rage at
Easy,
these users
easy,
or of
easy.
these. There's a term in engineering called failure effect analysis, which is essentially like you have to understand that your product or what you're engineering or the designs of the end state might be used in a completely unintended fashion from what you thought it was designed for, and you need to design your products with like that in mind. Like you're not supposed
Bitcoin.
to iron your clothes while wearing them, or
Hey, that callback.
or other, I don't know, whatever other engineering purpose that you're not supposed to mix like bleach and ammonia because it creates chlorine gas. Like there's a lot of things that
It's only
us
slightly
as
dangerous. It's fine.
engineers make, and they work beautifully for their intended purposes, and then like users get a hold of them, and then they like just go off the wall with the use cases for the things. So it is like a very common engineering thing to assume that your end users will like forehead everything, and that you can never rely on them to do like the simplest things, and that from a design criteria sometimes it's the best to make everything as like dummy proof. Like what you're trying to do is you're trying to set your user up to fail the least hard, the least often, because you're trying to take all of their control away from them.
The design concept there is that the easy path should be the secure path, right?
Right. But ultimately what it boils down to, and I don't disagree with you, Mackenzie, but even if we're planning for our users to fail the least amount of hard, even if we're putting in guide rails because we've written all these security policies, it doesn't mean that we say, yeah, let's just not bother trying to do user training or Fisher training or user education or any of these things, because like they're never going to learn. So why should I even bother to teach them? Ammonia shouldn't be mixed with certain things.
It's like the iron example. It's like, do we not even put on the box that you shouldn't iron while you're wearing your clothes. I mean, they still have these guides that they put in everything that you buy that tells you all the stupid stuff you shouldn't do just for like legal reasons. But
Well,
I mean,
and in those boxes, you put a little thing that says, "This is how you iron a piece of clothes." You know, these are the safety parameters that you should follow. And I think that attempt at education is still vitally important. I can't
I
see
feel
what you're
like that's
holding
a
up.
combination of like acceptable use policy and security awareness, right? Like you explain how you expect these things to be used, but you still understand that the users are probably not going to use them in the way they're intended.
Well, I think we're also missing the point that probably a majority of organizations do a pretty good job, because like Jessica points out, they're picking one instance in one country out of millions of countries worldwide, right? We're arguing about one little scenario, whereas, and that's what makes the news items too. We forget that there are a lot of people doing, good work, and if you put in a good, if you try to take a lot of what Eric's saying and apply that to like security awareness training and trying to make it like I've increased report rate by like 4% from year to year, right? For a phishing program, and all I've done is fish people the entire company monthly, um, depending on where you're at with reporting. But that shows that people are getting it when they're. And I'm not making. To me, it's not a got you fish. It's a let's see what's out there. Let's apply something that's applicable to the real world, and see if people start picking up on it just naturally. Without I don't assign extra training, right? It's just the monthly fish, and we've seen a significant increase in reporting based on the fact that they are practicing fishing. I talk about this too. I have monthly lunch and learns. I try to get out and talk to as many people as I can about the fishing program and what we're trying to do. And people are really taking hold of that. And some of it's gonna be grassroots, but I think the user community can learn, but I think you got to apply some of that empathy, right? Not expecting if someone clicks on a link. I've said this. I actually said this today to somebody because he's like, I feel like I should train these people on like link clicking, and I'm like, there are two people I care about in the company, right? It's people that click on the link and report it, and there are people that don't click on the link and report it. So ultimately, I care about the people that report the link. I want to see those report numbers go up whether they clicked on the link or not, right? They clicked on the link, yeah, it's bad, but they reported it, which is what I want, because we can respond to that a lot quicker.
And I agree with that. I think, and I just cut Mackenzie off, and he was patiently had his hand up. I'm a jerk face. Ultimately, what it boils down to for me is
Damn it, Jessica.
we don't ever stop training our users. We don't ever say, nothing we can do. I give up. Like, users are just going to do bad stuff. No, you still have to give them parameters and provide them that guidance and that awareness of like, this is how you do it right, or
Well,
secure, or
and a lot of people
correct,
it's
or whatever.
checkbox, right? And I'm totally cutting off Mackenzie again. Is that people are just doing the training videos, expecting that to improve security awareness. They're not actually putting effort into trying to find new ways of training the user base. No one
Where
wants
is
to
our
spend-
moderator?
Eric.
Shut up, Tim.
Go, Mackenzie.
I want to pull everyone back from the discussion on user and like end user education, and go back to fuck off, Tim, and go back to
The only correct response.
the challenges of getting buy-in, because the reason I brought my PMBOK guide over is because the way that I think about it now, I get to like grandstand and give you my 2 cents, is that like security, we suck. You know, Adam's right. We suck at getting buy-in, but like it's not a new concept. So like we got to look at the business and see like, oh, where are the other cost centers? Like human resources is a cost center. They don't generate revenue for the company. Quality assurance is a cost center. They don't generate revenue for the company. Like where are these other like organizations that don't like, they're not sales, they're not product, they're not development or engineering or anything like that. Like why do they function and why do they have resourcing? How do they sell it in the beginning, and how do they sell it? What are their metrics that we can copy over to over to cybersecurity, and how can we replicate that? Because HR is the most useless like program in every organization ever, but they have huge amounts of funding. So like they've sold it well to upper management because they can like demonstrate value based off of that cause. Like, okay, so how do we copy HR's model and then just use that for cybersecurity. So
I think that some call centers do generate profit. Just saying.
I didn't say anything about call centers.
Cost
Yeah, but
Cost
you also talk to people, and you're like, what's a lot of
I'll
people
take
don't
call
like
centers.
HR.
My bag, Mackenzie.
Wait, what? Yeah, what?
Well,
Sorry.
it's HR's job to get us to do as much work for as little money as possible, right? So, I mean, if we copy that, it's us implementing, effective security solutions for as little money and time as possible. But, I think that's what everybody wants to do. But getting there and reporting on it is not always easy.
So, I mean, if we want to dive into the conversation about cost center, security being a cost center. So, what we've had success with internally, for us at least, in our executives, is especially through our DLP program, right? Data loss prevention. When we were setting up the DLP program, my supervisor actually went through the time to figure out what the average cost of a breach was per number of NPPI or sensitive data exposed. And then we use that as a mathematic to be able to say, hey, your average cost of a exposure is going to be $50,000, $100,000 just in regulatory fines or whatever else. And then all of a sudden, executives lit up and went, hey, wait a minute. They may be costing us money, but they're also saving us, I don't know, a couple $1 million a year in this DLP program if anybody ever called us on it. So just still, no, security isn't making money, but it's damn sure preventing us from spending money.
Well, I
And
mean,
that's very
ultimately.
key. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What I was just going to say is, like, when I used to work in a motorcycle dealership, and one of the things that we always did, and I've seen other companies do this as well at a bigger level, but in the motorcycle dealership, you've got sales, you've got parts, and you've got service. So there's 3 departments, and in order to exchange like a quote unquote deal, whether it's a sale or a repair or whatever, from one department for another, the departments charged each other. So I mean, that's
What's
and
in it
that's
for
not
me?
right. And this adds up to like a whole bunch of extra complexity and other issues that are presented because now, oh well, I can't bill you for my time when I sit here and help you secure your server, so now I'm not going to do it. And so it's not an answer, but it might be the start of an answer.
I think it's a part of a bigger picture answer where, a lot of what we've just talked about, and I'm trying to keep track of the things I wanted to say, but a lot of this, some that I have in a later slide, when you have not just the perspective of who you're talking to, but whoever else is going to be involved in this decision, whether it's for spend or buy-in or training or learning on the end user's perspective, understanding their perspective and what's motivating them. If you can come up with a more comprehensive approach to saying, here's what you will get out of this, because they all want to say, what do I get? And as a company, as an organization that's a corporate entity, you can say, well, you get to keep your job. If you do this, this, and this, you keep getting a paycheck. But that sounds aggressive and mean. If you can say, well, hey, within this cybersecurity awareness program that we want you to learn, you can do the low end stuff and gamify it and offer awards and prizes. That's kind of cheesy and simple, but you can also just tell them, hey, we're going to help make you more aware of what's going on in the cyber world, help you protect your own identity personally as well, help you not rely on your kid as much to secure your home Wi-Fi, help kind of teach you the things that you might be able to use in life to be a little more, capable on your own. That's just one example of something. We've had at least a couple of clients that have spun their programs towards that and said to the providers who are doing some of the training, saying, hey, can you help drop some things to our users that aren't related to the company, that just help them appreciate this on a broader scale. It's just one motivation, one way of kind of getting that buy-in a little bit more. And there's so many others, even talking about HR and how HR has so much money. Why does HR have so much money now? Well, it used to be just they were hiring people and trying to keep them, and then lawsuits became an issue. So HR has these other mandates that are more preventative, which is really what cybersecurity is, where a lot of what HR has to do is similar to what we have to do, and that we're trying to keep us from being sued, or if we are, make it easy to settle, because we've gotten people to sign this user agreement that they're not going to violate, and if they do, we can fire them. And a lot of what cybersecurity is protecting against that eventuality. It's
The prime
similar
function
to
of both groups is to protect the organization.
ultimately, but from what? From bad stuff or from having to spend crazy money. And we've seen this recently, relatively recently. I've been in here a long time, but HIPAA was a huge plus for cybersecurity because it motivated the medical industry with fines and with violations. If you don't protect your medical records the way we're telling you should, which was always a good idea, just nobody bothered, we're going to fine you. And there will be a cost to not doing this, whether or not you're breached. And that's a proactive motivation that says, hey, you need to do that. We're seeing that now throughout cybersecurity. I've had more and more clients doing this, and they call us and I always like to ask, why do you want this? Why are you looking at this? And they say, well, our cybersecurity insurance did an audit and they flagged us because we don't have it. Okay, do you really want to use it? Do you have the bandwidth to get value out of it? No, we just have to have it. Okay, that's one possible motivation. But we're seeing more and more of this, proactive rather than reactive, which is what we've always wanted to do with cybersecurity. Reactive, it's too late. It's backups and insurance. Yeah, I lost my data. I should start backing up. Well, no, it's too late. Yes, my house burned down. I should get insurance. No, it's too late. Yes, I was breached. I should get cybersecurity. It's too late. But we have to kind of get that ahead of them. And I hate using fear tactics to do it. Say, hey, this sister company, this competitor of ours was just breached. Yay for us. But that should be a shot in the arm of, hey, let's not be the next one of them. Let's do what they didn't do and get ahead of this stuff. That's still a tough way to argue it and a tough way to kind of motivate. As opposed to if you could take that same argument where we want to start these initiatives, things that we know we should be doing, but is there a way to spin it to those decision makers that instead of doing it because it's the right thing and it'll protect us from this potential eventuality, if we can do it and then spin it to our customers as, hey, we've done these things to protect you and your data, make it a marketing win. That's one way that I've seen a few kind of spin their investment in cybersecurity as we're not going to be the next target. We're not going to be the next one of them because we are proactive and we're investing, in ourselves and ultimately in our customers' confidence in us. And again, it's just spinning with things in the right way to handle the objections before they become objections, and understanding those motivations and perspectives is key to that. Sorry, I kind of went off on a direction.
No, one of
That was good. Take it over. Take it over,
Nick.
Francesca. Keep talking.
Nick,
I
I
was
think
gonna say,
I love hearing it too.
I'll share, one way I've been successful selling internally in the past. And I came from a DoD contractor, and that was one time in my career where I've been able to use regulation to my advantage. We have regulations coming down, and you either do these things or you don't keep the contracts that you currently have, right? We were on 5-year IDIQ contracts that ended in 2023. So we were able to sell it internally and set an internal deadline of, February of 2023 to be compliant with CMMC, which means we need to have all the things done 6 months ahead of time to show maturity in those processes and controls. And, full disclosure, I work for Checkpoint now, but that's the way I sold Checkpoint internally at FN America when I was there. Executives really didn't care about what we wanted to do until and how much it cost. They didn't want to. We never even got to how much it cost, right? They didn't even want to hear it until regulations started coming down. They're like, oh well, we need to meet this, and we're like, well, what we've been talking about since like 2016. We got you. This is
I think the
what we've been trying to do.
I think the failing I've seen in regulations is you just have to check boxes. And if you check the boxes, you don't get fined. You might still be breached because, yes, we deployed a SIM, but nobody sits and looks at it. There's no actual use of the product. I mean, I go back to, 30 years ago in data centers, seeing at the time, a big 21-inch monitor. Yes, that was big at one time with HP OpenView on it.
Look, we have a pew pew map.
Saying to the customer, now what, and having all these like red, green, and yellow lights on it. And, what is that? Oh, it's our HP OpenView. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we spent $250,000 on it. We never touch it because nobody understands it.
Yeah,
but
was a
it
major
would check
issue.
a box.
That was a major issue in the defense industry. The whole checking the box thing came at the end of 2017 when everybody said, hey, you can have a plan of action, And everybody came up with a plan of action which made them compliant. They said, hey, we'll do this in 3 years. We'll do this in 5 years. Well, now it's 4 years later and nobody's done anything they said they were going to do. So CMMC changed the whole game when you're going to have to start getting certified and people are going to actually look at, what you said you're going to do.
Yep.
That's when, heads started getting turned in the defense industry of, oh shit, we really have to do what we said we were going to do and we can't keep pushing it off because, technically you could submit revisions to your plan of action on a quarterly basis. So if you didn't meet something, you'd say, oh, I'll do it next year. And
We're
you
working on it.
remain
We're
compliant.
working
As
on
long
it.
as you
Perpetually
said you were
working
going to
on
do
it.
you were good.
Ultimately, one of the challenges right there, right? So what you're alluding to, DFARS came along. Oh, we need to be compliant with these things, but we'll do it eventually. And then CMMC V1 came out. Oh my gosh, they're gonna come and they're gonna audit us. Somebody's actually gonna come in and assess us, and they're gonna be looking for longevity of the controls, not just 6 months. They're gonna be looking for years of evidence. Oh well, that seems hard. So let's do CMMC version 2 now, where version level 1, it's gonna be back to self-assess. Should be fine.
Pick your framework based on ease.
Yeah, well, I think, Eric, it goes back to your maturity thing, right? Security hasn't been around for a long time. IT has been around for a little bit longer, but like what, the 70s? And we've compared to like HR, and HR, like you said, has gotten to that point because they've been around a lot longer. And I think, like you mentioned HIPAA, and it's interesting that you say that because I work in the healthcare space, and HIPAA is vague. It is very vague. So, like you said, we can install SIM. Hey, we've got it there, but no one's actually looking at it, right? And so, we're actually a high trust certified, organization where I work, and that's the next level. So I think these government and regulations and compliance things are good because it, like you said, it pushes the healthcare industry to, oh yeah, maybe we should actually care about this stuff and and it's even right now, like the medical device industry is god awful, right? It's just they're just doing it for the money, and they're the ones that are keeping us on Windows XP and potentially even worse because and then there's the medical companies that go out of business. But I think I like your point about like HR has been around, and I think just for us, it's like also realizing that some of this just takes time.
Hey Tim, we've got manufacturing too. They've also got us sticking around on XP, so don't blame it all on Med.
Well, I don't know that's for McKenzie. I'm the healthcare space, right?
I can tell you, actually, I can't tell you, but I will. A particular military department that's still running Windows 95 on some devices that are controlling other billion-dollar devices.
I'm a veteran. I'm very aware.
Oh
yes.
God.
It's insane, but it's what's going to motivate to change. The cost to rewrite whatever it is that these scripts are doing on a newer platform and then test it properly and vet it. It's not worth it. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it is sometimes the mentality. And until it's broken, it's hard to get money to fix it.
Yes. Well, and here's the point with Log4j. If you're on an older version, if you're on Windows 95, no one knows how to hack that these days. Like,
isn't that why people still use Macs?
Right.
Reminder.
Chromebooks, for that matter, we talked about that.
Obsolete technology is secure.
Just remember that every U.S. Navy ship uses Windows 7.
That's why I use
Adam
OS
has decided to exit the room.
But you talk about HIPAA. Use HIPAA, and I'll say this with more current examples. But one of the purposes HIPAA can serve is to be the bad guy. That can be why you say we have to do this. Sorry, your password isn't secure. Yeah, but a more secure one's a pain in the butt. Yeah, but we have to. And again, you're an employee at will. If you don't like it, find a job, somewhere that doesn't care or that it isn't necessary. And we're finding that cybersecurity insurance, maybe a bad word, I apologize, but it's becoming a good excuse, a good bad guy to point the finger and say, we as a company need to have this so we don't become the next one. And a year from now, you've still got a job. And they are requiring that we put in these things. These are the mandates that come from them for us to have the reduced premium so you still get your health care and you still get, a raise. We have to give them a certain amount, and to give them less, we have to do a little more. And that's helping within cybersecurity teams, helping motivate the spenders too. So if you're, and I'll say it, lucky enough to be going after cybersecurity insurance, you can leverage them quite a bit and put a lot on them as they're a motivator. And if you don't have it, it's a discussion to maybe start.
This where my like hate of playing the game starts to like get triggered, and I was like, no, we shouldn't have to do any of this.
Yeah, you shouldn't. That's not reality, man.
None of this
it's
should exist.
Unfortunate, but we do, man.
Yeah, I mean,
if they would only listen to us, we wouldn't have to.
You pay me to do it.
Somebody like how I think.
Right. Somebody earlier said like you pay me to do a job. I'm doing the job and I'm telling you what's important. That should be trust enough. Until you.
If you're lucky enough that that's the case, I want your job.
Yeah, that doesn't. No one has that job.
Exactly.
Well, ultimately, one of the things that you've kind of been dancing around and over is the fact that, like, you can't fear monger or motivate your employees. It doesn't work. Like, it creates this culture of fear where you badger them into, oh my God, if you have an incident, if you click on a fish, you're going to get in trouble. No, we need you to just report it. You're not in trouble, but we need you to report it so that we can actually do something about it. But if you put people in the mindset where if I make a mistake, I'm going to get in trouble, it leads to people hiding their mistakes. And it makes it that much harder to secure or address security. So I think one of the biggest things for me is to appropriately sell security. You have to create a culture where people can bring incomplete information to the board. You can't wait for, hey, Log4j, we can't wait to know everything about this thing before we tell our board, hey, there's something going on. If we did, it would have been another 2 weeks from right now.
You're touching on positive reinforcement as opposed to negative. Don't give them a slap on the wrist for not doing it. Give them a reward for doing it. Help find it, bring it to our attention. And again, I think in analogies, and I'm just picturing like the FBI's most wanted, and the rewards aren't for capture, but for information leading to the capture, because it's dangerous for you to go try and capture that guy. We don't want you to go after him and try and get him. We want you to let us know that you might have seen him in a store.
100%.
So let us go try and find him. We know how to get him correctly and safely, and we'll still reward you for that information. Help become, and I've said it, I sound hokey all the time, again, why they pulled me into sales. But our biggest security vulnerability is our user base. Let's not, why not turn them into a bit of an asset? Educate them, help motivate them in ways that help them be our eyes and ears and become part of the solution. And I'm not saying that's easy, but if that's an approach we take, I think that can be helpful in trying to kind of, find the right motivations, the right perspectives, and be teaching them things that they can use outside of work too. It's not just do this because we said so and you want to keep your job, but we're going to help everybody. And if you can find these things for us, find that for every phishing email you forward to us, instead of clicking the link, you're entered in the drawing every month. And heck, I'll pay that out of my own pocket for $100 Amazon card, or 0.000 whatever Bitcoins. that make it a positive motivation. Or we've seen a lot of this. We've actually seen this with companies that do focus on cybersecurity awareness training, where it's gamification to the end user. Let's make this a fun competition that you're somehow learning from at the same time. And you have to do it, but let's make it not so painful too. If we can reduce the pain and make it even somewhat enjoyable, then why not?
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we should all, as security professionals, try to implement solutions that are the least path of least resistance for the users. I mean, I know it takes extra time to do that user testing to make sure it's easy for them. But whenever we release something, if it's not right the first time we release it, even if we make it right, it gets this negative perception within the organization, and then it's even harder to sell later. Whenever you have to do MFA or do some extra step to log in, it's never fun, right? It makes it harder. But the least hard we make it, I think we have better chances of adoption and user acceptance.
Yeah, exactly. It's find a way to make it easy to accept and adapt and adopt, and you know, it's find a way to make it appeal. I think passwords have been a really fun example of this, and how passwords have evolved over the years, and how they've gone through. Here's what we recommend as a password. 8 characters. Okay, well now it's 8 characters with an uppercase and a number, and then a punctuation letter, and they're really no better. And I've seen so many different things over the years, and we all know, I think passwords alone aren't really the best solution. Having more factors is helpful, but also not easy. But I remember seeing it, and it was probably at least 10 years ago, as we're batting about, well, how many is enough characters, which is going to change all the time as processing gets better and cheaper and more efficient. The longer the password, the longer of password we can brute force or work out hashes for. But the idea of complexity and what makes it more complex, and it was an article about 3-word passwords, just 3 random words. Could be any words, horse, belt, shoelace, could be anything. And those together make for a really long password. They're dictionary words in and of themselves, but because you get the length, but you only have to remember 3 things. It was this great idea of it's something you can remember. You're not as tempted to write it down, but it's just one of those ideas that if you can find a way to accomplish what everybody needs, make it easy to remember, not super stressful, even fun, maybe a little bit, and yet of a proper challenge scale, then you might get more sign-in from everybody. And I thought that was an interesting way of starting to try and do that, as opposed to just making them longer and longer and harder and enticing people more and more to write them down.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it used to always be rainbow tables plus 1, right? So you just wanted to get past whatever people had rainbow tables for. But now it's like it's gotten so long. I think it's like whatever 25 characters or 26 characters, something. You have to come up with some way like that to make it easier for the users to remember. And they're not going to think of that on their own, right? So I mean, even as simple as it sounds, just some user education around that, I think, goes a long way.
I love some creative suggestions. I heard one of them was, have it be a couple dictionary words, but intentionally misspell one of them. It's not going to come up in the brute force. It's not in the dictionaries. Use not just a number for a letter, because we all know how bad that is, but
don't just increment the number when you change your password.
Yeah.
Well, we crack passwords on a quarterly basis at my work, and I can tell you we've cracked a 22 character password. Now it was password 123 with like a couple exclamation points. It was bad. It was like repeated, right? So it's not, and we've cracked, and I didn't put I just did themes, and I pretty much just went through every theme you could think of: sports, alcohol, like anything. What we did find, because I know my password has never ended up in one of those, is it has never been cracked. And this actually goes back to Ralph Collum, who is a member of Colasec. I don't think he's been around for a little bit, but he's in the Columbia area. One of the things that he told me that has, I think, been the most effective is to almost salt your own passwords, which is put a spare, like use like what you're talking about, horse battery, like staple, but put a special character in between each word. That almost like adds a salt on top of any sort of encryption that you're doing. And I do that, and I've never had my password cracked because it's not in a rainbow table, and it adds like you're saying, they have figured out, and this is just the evolution. I think at some point they'll figure out special characters in between passwords, but like they figured out that you replace an A with an @ symbol, or a I with a 1, or an L,
O with a 0.
whatever. Right? Yeah, they figure out all this stuff, and as we see more and more breaches, particularly with things like have I been pwned and other stuff, those passwords are getting, there's more and more passwords being compromised. So that's where we have to kind of like evolve some of the past. And I don't agree with people that I don't agree with the idea that passwords are bad. They've been around for thousands of years. It's just they need to, like you said, they unfortunately have to get more complex and more, we have to think of more creative ways to create passwords, because they've been using them since the Roman times, because that's, the Caesar cipher, right? That eventually that got cracked, but at the time, it was a secure way of moving messages back and forth.
I
Do you
think
get to
passwords,
use?
or at least authentication, could probably be a whole topic and a whole event of itself. There's enough to talk about there, but I'd use it more as
Oh
an
yeah.
example of if you can find the right mix of what you require and yet caters to the perspective of the user who has to remember all these crazy passwords, and it becomes very daunting. Even if that comes down to a corporate sponsored password application, that they can leverage at home too and store some personal passwords, making their life a little bit easier, not harder. If you can find the right mix of improving their lives, making things easier, and yet making it more secure, you're going to get much better buy-in.
Hey Tim, do you get to use your Kraken rig for Bitcoin mining when you're not cracking passwords on computers?
I wish that would probably just go to the company. So, no, we just use it for password, and it's pretty much
They
a
just use
gaming
it to
rig.
crack crypto wallets instead.
Oh god, that might be a good idea. Actually, yeah,
I,
and cryptocurrency and stuff is like a big, like if you want to talk about security and stuff and getting some more security awareness within your user base, talking about stuff that they care. Like I had our HR VP come to me and go, "Hey, how do I secure my son's getting cryptocurrency? How do I secure his wallet?" And I'm like, that sounds like a good lunch up there.
Yeah, cold wallet.
so one of the things that I'll point out, so earlier we were talking about how do we generate buy-in, right? How do we get other companies to buy into security? And it's interesting because as we talked about password, it reminds me, um, there is a particular client that I consult for, um, who recently in um, one of their contracts, one of their statements of work, it's written in the contract that all the things that they will do surrounding passwords, and among those, it includes you will verify all your user passwords against like lists of well-known and compromised passwords quarterly. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, guess what we got to do now? We don't have any other options. And that to me is an even easier win than trying to be like, well, the regulation says we should. It's like, no, no, no. The statement of work that the business signed says that we have to. I got nothing.
Yeah, I want to, Eric, if I can go back to your talk about kind of perspective for a second. We talked about end users, we talked about the C levels and sales and that sort of thing. I think we've talked around, or most of us know, because I think we have an IT background, pretty heavily in Colac. But to share one of my strategies, and I'll use the term social engineering, although I would say it's probably not actually social engineering, but talking about perspective with IT and kind of building what I call back-end relationships. So in my organization, I've spent a lot of time trying to talk with some of the leaders in IT and just be like, hey, look, if you've got something you got coming up that you need buy-in on, or if you've got a specific security control that's causing you a headache, let me know. Just like hit me up one-on-one. Let's talk through it together. Let me be your sales guy for InfoSec, and I will go to my leadership and say, hey guys, we got a problem over here. Security control is getting in the way. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I've talked with IT leadership, a couple of them, or maybe they bring something to my attention. There's all kinds of uses for that kind of back channel, being able to just like, hey man, just kind of, elbow in the side, like, hey man, this is the thing. So I guess to share that more so than anything is another potential kind of avenue, if that makes sense.
Is it better to be feared or loved?
Grassroots support.
Yeah, and I mean
at least one of them. But
yeah,
if you can be loved by everyone and still be effective, I think it's an easier path. But that requires having that perspective, knowing how to get them to buy in and be excited and be happy about it, as opposed to, oh, I have to do it. It's a pain in the neck, and find that way. And if you can do that with all parties involved in it, then it gets happier and easier and more successful.
Yeah, I find there's usually two things with kind of those back channel communications that kind of occurs is, hey, there's something in my way. I'm trying to get this job done. Can you help me out? Or there's people in IT that, lo and behold, are security minded, which, hopefully doesn't come as a surprise to most people in the crowd. But, I've had more on a couple of occasions where some of the IT guys have come to me and be like, hey, man, we're setting up this control this way because it's good for IT, but security might want to think about it because, and they're concerned about it. I actually had a
not too long ago had about an hour-long conversation with somebody on our SharePoint team who was adamant about our M365 controls for SharePoint and external file sharing, and was like, look, I absolutely will not enable external file sharing on SharePoint until this security control is set up correctly. And it was a super awkward conversation because I was like, look, this isn't within your purview. This is my team that worries about this. And he was like, no, you don't understand. I'm not going to allow it to happen. I was like, okay, dude, I got you. But it just, interesting that, the script was flipped a little bit there. But, there are, I guess I say that to say, especially with kind of this newer wave of IT that's coming in, I do think people are becoming security minded, adamantly so.
It's like a lot of things that we, as a culture, at least in the US, we're very impatient. We want what we want now. And there are so many things, not to get political or polarizing or anything, but there are a lot of things that change generationally. And if we could be patient and wait, some of these problems wouldn't be problems anymore, because those who are either better or just differently educated will move into those positions and have that perspective. Of course, by then we'll want yet another perspective, and something newer will be coming up under them. But we see cybersecurity, definitely it's not as difficult a discussion with as many people as it used to be. But even those people who think they know it, by the time they get to a point that they think they know it, they don't. And there's newer stuff. And it's a specific mentality, which is why I mentioned engineering's in your blood. It's not about learning a bunch of stuff in school and then using that for the rest of your life. It's about understanding the concepts around it, being able to adapt and learn and even thrive and enjoy that learning, and constantly changing, and knowing that, yeah, what I know today, next year might mean nothing. And I have to know I can apply it. And the lesson, why I love that I've been around this industry for as long as I have. I like that perspective in the past, but the knowledge from the past isn't applicable. It helps you learn the new things, and helps you adapt and understand it, and gain some of that perspective, and find the path forward, and be accepting of when, hey, there's change. Maybe it's for good reason, and at least help to vet it a little bit. And again, I'm kind of changing the topic unintentionally.
Whoa. What I learned this year will always be important, because what I'm learning this year will make me a doctor. So
well, you're different.
And now
Shut your
Jessica's
mouth.
changing the topic to her.
Jessica's entering jokes.
But the facts that you learn, they'll always be valuable, but they won't always be the facts, because the best way to do something now, or the right way to do it now, will change over time, especially in technology that just evolves at this amazing pace. But the lessons we learn and the things we have now should be valuable, either to help make that happen, or to help understand how to leverage those advancements when they occur too, even in medicine and whatever other field it may be. Even history changes over time, apparently. It's rewritten now and then. Columbus used to be a great guy, didn't he? Sorry.
I'd like to throw out one thing. As you are trying to sell things internally, and you run into roadblocks, consider sharing the problems you're having with the people in the cybersecurity industry who you do business with, whether it's a VAR or an OBM vendor, because one, they have an interest in helping you get around that roadblock, but two, they've probably had a customer who ran into a similar problem before and can help you come up with case studies or stories, or better ways to illustrate the point you're trying to make with people who allocate and or control budgets. I've seen a lot of times where people feel like they're telling the story and conveying the risk, but they're not. And it's because you need to dumb it down one level past where you think you need to dumb it down to. Hey, if we don't do this, we're going to get breached, just like this competitor of ours got breached. That should be plain and simple. But well, what does that actually mean to be breached? What are the implications or ramifications for the business? I think earlier somebody was talking about allies or informal contacts throughout the business. One area where I've seen people come up short time and again is being able to actually translate cyber risk into dollar amounts. And I took some business courses a few years ago that had nothing to do with cybersecurity, but in the course of taking those courses, it amazed me that if you talk to the right people, you can put a dollar amount on anything. So in addition to the straightforward costs of remediation, people in your financial organization can put a dollar amount on the damage to your brand and your reputation. And so all of those things can be also taken into account if you choose to present, hey, if we don't do this, this is potentially the cost to us. And, some smart financial guy can, allocate that cost over some period of time and say, all right, if something bad happens to us, over the course of 10 years, it'll cost us this amount of money. However, if we put this thing in place for this amount of money, it mitigates that risk to whatever somebody then finds acceptable. So I think I rambled around a couple things, but my main point was if you're running into problems, ask for help. I mean, I would be, and I think I speak for any salesperson, we'd be happy to help you figure out a way around a roadblock if there's a project that that you support and you want to get accomplished.
It's a huge point. Chris, I want to speak first. Sorry.
They can run a whole bunch of Monte Carlo simulations, which is really, really cool in Excel, and I'm not smart enough to do it, but it's really, really cool. And then they take qualitative data and they make it quantitative, and it's amazing.
Chris, to your point too, I completely agree, Jessica. But Chris, to your point, that I actually had on the slide that I was sharing at that time, and still am, kind of the idea of leveraging partners, whether that's through vendor partners or VARs or trusted advisors, whatever weird hokey term of the year we have, and don't assume that you know all they can do for you. Bring the problems to them. If they're good vendors, product vendors or value-added resellers, they should be willing not only to listen, but if they have seen it before, because they're again working with many customers. The vendors working with thousands and thousands of them. VARs like us are working with hundreds and hundreds of them. We've likely seen similar things before, and can help leverage those experiences of others. And yeah, there are evil vendors. Don't talk to them. If you're working with evil vendors, you need to switch. Go to either not or at least less evil vendors that will listen to you and try and add value, even if they're not being tangibly paid for it. And it's one of the things this is why they drag me to sales. If they're in it for the long term, they don't have to be looking at it as, okay, to answer this question, what do I get out of it? Where's the quick sale? Is there a quick buck in me helping you solve this? It's no, if I can help you, I want to help you and steer you in the right direction, give you good advice, give you good recommendations. Yeah, we may not, give you 80 hours of free PS, but we'll do what we can to help you along this journey that we're all on together. And that's ideally how those vendors, the good ones, look at it, is they're on a journey with you. They're with you, whether it's wingman or whatever the position might be, to try and help. But you also need the perspective that they need to pay the bills too. And if you're leveraging too much of their time, again, everyone has, and in the sales side, and this is a really hokey, I think I might have it on another slide, in a business dealing, and that's sometimes what it comes down to. If you can envision an outcome where everybody wins, where our client is going to get the value that they need for the money they're spending, they're going to check the boxes or actually realize the value and be in a better position than they were, and it's quantitative with what they're spending, and the vendor is being compensated for their product that they're putting their R&D into and the support into, and that we're being compensated for our efforts. If everyone can come out feeling whole, then that's probably a good deal to go forward with. If anyone isn't, it's not going to work. It's going to be a combative, thing that nobody wins. If somebody's trying to win the transaction and be like, I overcharged them so much, I got so much margin on that deal, it's amazing, I'm going to retire. If you're going to retire, fine, you won. But if you're still going to be in that business, you're burning bridges. You're not in it for the long term. If you're in it for the long term, you find the way that everyone can help win. And this goes down to the same thing with the end user. If they can come out of whatever mandates you've given them or requests you've asked of them and feel like they're better for it and understand how they're better for it, you're going to get a much better buy-in. And it's that, again, that positive reinforcement and reward as opposed to slapping them on the wrist when they screw up. It's if you can find that, and take some creativity sometimes and patience. But overall, if there's one theory or theme around getting buy-in and getting people on board, it's figure out how to help them feel like they're winning and not just being demanded of, and they're giving and giving and giving.
Eric, I want to echo something that you just kind of mentioned there in relation to the vendor relationship, kind of long term, short term. I think as security professionals too, we need to keep in mind that sometimes you can be more flexible in the near term for a long term goal. Slippery slope, you got to be careful, because if deals are made
taken advantage of.
Right, because if deals are made of, oh, well, we'll circle back around, don't say circle. As soon as that word gets said, I'm out. But if it's kind of all in one process, or like, in this very moment, I need you to relinquish this security control so that we can move forward with this project. So by the end of the project, we re-implement something better, then maybe it's a bargaining chip. You got to have, there's some risk there, so to speak.
Well, that's where the long-term trust relationships really come in, where you have, I hope, if you don't, I feel bad, but I hope you have some vendors that you work with that you can go to them with something and they will give you a straight answer. They're not just going to try and spin something to fit. It's like, oh yeah, you can use this hammer on those screws. It'll work. If they don't sell screwdrivers, the better ones will tell you, no, we sell hammers and it could work in a pinch. And if you're really in a bind, I'll sell you a hammer for those screws.
Yep.
But what you really should do is go talk to a screwdriver vendor.
Yep.
And that's going to serve you better. And then that's just furthering the trust with that vendor. And now the next time you have a problem, they're going to give you the straight answer. And if they can help and find a way, great. And they're in it for the long term. They're not in for a quick sale. And that's so much. Not being a sales guy, even though I am, I just sleep better and feel better being that way, that I'm being helpful as opposed to winning.
I think Nick had his hands up.
Another book.
Yeah,
Now
I
I
was
have
just
to
gonna
ask
go
this
back
time,
to-
Jessica, is it a yes or a no, this one?
Next turn.
Okay.
I was just going to go back to something Chris said, and I've already mentioned my previous employer, so I'll just say it. Like, one of the sister companies of the company I used to work for was Browning North America, and whenever we started selling this to them, they're not held to the same regulations we were as a DoD contractor. They don't sell anything to the DoD, so like, why the F should we put all this money into implementing this stuff? We just started talking to their finance organization, and that's like Chris said, don't be afraid to ask internally, what's important to the company. And for them, it was, brand and reputation, and their finance department could tell us, if we lose this certain information, it's going to cost us much. How they figured that out, I have no freaking clue. They worked with some, consultant to figure this
Paid
out.
a lot of money to get that number.
Yeah, without even consulting IT or cybersecurity within the organization, but they knew the number, and that was the number we needed. We went to them, and I didn't, I thought I knew everything about Browning, but I found out through this process that they make more money on clothes than they do guns. It's a gun company, but they make more money on guns and clothes and stickers and all kind of other shit than they do on guns.
Oh wow.
And so their reputation was extremely important to them, more so than, hey, we have a breach of some serial numbers for some guns or something, because that wasn't a majority of their business. So that was news to me, in that process of selling internally and not being afraid to ask. And, don't be afraid to ask, because you might find something out that you didn't know.
Something Ferrari, something.
Branding matters more than
Yeah,
IP.
exactly. Yeah. For them, their IP is everywhere, right? For them to control their IP, they have so many joint ventures of people making guns for them, or they work with someone else to sell a gun. It's in so many different organizations. But if something happened to Browning itself and their reputation got damaged, and Second Amendment people thought they lost all their information and nobody wants to buy shirts and jackets anymore, then they were screwed.
So I do recommend this book. This one boils down to.
Oh, I'm sorry, folks. We're out of time.
Define your core competencies. Focus on your core competencies. If you make screwdrivers, make really good fucking screwdrivers. But don't say, hey, hammers seem to be selling well. We don't know how to make hammers, but we can figure it out. and then you make a crummy hammer, and you've invested all this time into making a crummy hammer. So it's about focusing on your core competencies, outsource what doesn't make sense to have in house.
Not in my wheelhouse. Don't be afraid to say it. It's
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
So how? So I don't have an answer for this one. So this is an honest answer. How do we relate what Jessica just said to cybersecurity internally? Like, how does that apply to us in that we need to focus on our core competencies as security to somehow better sell security to the organization? I.e., is it focus on critical controls or where it makes the most where we make the most impact, or what does that look like?
24/7 SOC.
I was going to say, I think it goes back to making sure the solutions that we implement are not a hindrance to the users, right? That path of least resistance. I mean, Tim said, don't be dicks too. That helps as well. But if every time we put in something, it makes our users' jobs harder, and unnecessarily harder, then it's going to be harder and harder to get user adoption in the future.
So vis-a-vis, focus on doing it right the first time. So like you said, you don't, because and you made a good point earlier, Nick. Is I've one of the things that I want to try and get done is application whitelisting or application control, and I am deathly afraid of that project because the user impact on that is through the roof. And if there is a sense that we did it wrong, if a single user says, that must be application control blocking something I'm trying to get done, and complains about it, we've lost the battle as security internally, right? So, yeah.
I wouldn't say it's if one user comes up with that. I've run into this in the past. I wouldn't say if it's one user that comes up with that, because you're always going to find a user that's doing something weird in the organization that's going to get blocked when you implement. But if it's one application that fails across all your users, you're effed, right? So take that time in learning mode to make sure of what's going on in your organization before you create that list and deploy it. And if you can avoid, the one application that everybody uses from going down versus the one guy that uses that one application once a year, I think you're going to be good.
I will argue with you slightly. I will say it depends upon the user.
Yeah, no doubt.
One
If
user.
it's a CEO, it's different. But I mean, we did application whitelisting at a place I worked at in the past, and everything went well with this one inspection guy that uses some kind of, I don't know, plasma inspection machine that was doing some kind of weird network traffic, ended up getting blocked and holding some stuff up, and it was a big deal. But, from our standpoint, we had no way of knowing that because he did it so infrequently that we didn't pick it up when we were learning this stuff. And, when it happened, we jumped on it and got it solved quickly, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I don't think we could have done anything better other than take more time in learning mode to find that application on our end. So
yeah, but
I want to give you guys a story, but I want to kind of give Eric's lean to it, right? We don't have application control in our environment. But we do have the support desk will not install software unless it's on an approved list, right? Now there's a lot of cleanup that still needs to happen with a lot of that, but we also had a guy who's on the road constantly, and we found out he had Steam on his computer, right? We said, you know what? We don't care. Yeah, Steam, like the platform Steam for playing games. We said we don't care about that because that's a manager thing. But the guy's on the road constantly, and so you know what? If he's sitting in a hotel all the time, why do I care if he's going to load up a Steam game and play? Like, that doesn't really improve the security of the workstation a whole lot. So I think there's a little bit of, and this is what I've been trying to say in the comments is there is some social engineering. This is not being dicks. This is understanding what people are doing, the situation they're in, and having a little empathy around it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that what Nick was talking about, you can do a certain amount of testing and everything, but at some point you have to go live and then clean up the small issues, as they come out. You can't spend forever in test, or else you'll never move forward. So there is a balance there, and you have to find it out in your organization. You can't just there's no metric, there's no rule that applies, across the board. But because we recently had a similar example, because we rolled out TLS 1.2 a couple weeks ago. We finished it. We'd been working
Oh
on it
shit!
for months and
You
months and
broke
months.
something.
We
You broke
broke
something.
something. It was,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know,
Hey, David.
but it was
David,
okay.
please tell us more, Mr. Patch Everything in 10 days.
You know, I don't know why people hold this
That's
against
a deep
me.
cut.
I stand by this. It's been 4+ years. Test nothing, deploy everything, and deal with the fallout later. I don't know why I keep getting held accountable for this.
Ask forgiveness, not permission.
Because the most recent Windows updates caused DCs to randomly reboot.
And
Yeah, it causes issues with VPNs too, by the way.
What do you mean, and?
every time I see those headlines, I remember that when we do deploy those updates, sometimes they do apply to us and sometimes they don't. So just because it says, oh my God, 2012 DCs, you know, they'll suffer random reboots. Well, it's not 100% that all 2012 DCs will suffer reboots. No, it's that a small percentage of the population has reported this, and so they have to fix it. So it's not just, they've labeled it, okay, this and this. Okay, cool. You guys will have problems. But it's not that every single 2012 DC is going to just perpetually reboot until you uninstall the update. Some people will have problems, but it's not that big of a deal. What we recently dealt with was we turned on or enforced TLS 1.2 only on all of our systems, and it was the final straw of like, hey, we've finished this last little segment of machines, and everybody else has been done for months. And come to find out, we got a random email like, hey, we saw you guys close this ticket, and now, you know, we're having this random issue. Can you look at it? Cool. Okay. Turns out somebody's using an old VPN. Thank you, because not only did we not have that in our asset management, but we also now have another side project, and we need to help you update your VPN so you can use TLS 1.2. And we can make an exception. And what I love about IT, and Eric, you keep using this term engineers. We're all engineers. We all know how to fix shit. We can fix stuff really fast. So because we understand the issues and we understand computers really well, we can fix the problems. When we break stuff, we can fix them because we understand them. We live in them every day, and that's what I love about it. If we didn't understand them, we would be just like, oh, I don't know how to fix that. But we broke it, so we can fix it, and within hours, if not a handful of days, you can take care of seemingly horrific issues to end users in a matter of small amount of time, um, and get right back to normal. Sure, I've broken shit horrifically. I made a situation where no one could log into any computer in the entire environment, and it was wonderful. But I had it fixed in like 20 minutes, and then everybody could log in again. And
Tell me more. What did you break? Can I take notes?
How many
yes,
people logged during that time, though? Maybe
10-year retention.
right over a 20-minute span, some small percentage of users may or may not log off and log back in, and they just happen to not be able to log back in. But 20%.
20 minutes is pretty good.
That's pretty good. What I will say is group policy. I love group policy, and I hate group policy. It's my favorite tool, and it is my most hated tool. I need time to read this.
Oh, sorry, it kicked into my head a few minutes ago when somebody was talking about how get blamed for everything. It's one of my favorites. I actually have the physical one from the Sunday newspaper back when I used to get one of these whenever that was.
Nice. From that picture earlier when you had brown hair.
Yeah, that was the other me.
The one that Tim found. Yeah, that's.
He looked like Wolverine, by the way. I just want to call that out.
The other guy.
Oh yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, this is inevitable. What I was going to say earlier when you guys were all talking was like, my favorite place to be is where when we deploy changes and updates that no one knows who I am, nobody knows that I did anything, my team did anything. It's seamless, obviously, to the end user. That's the ultimate goal. We want to deploy security and update and make things better, seamless to the end user.
When they come and blame the firewall because of some new problem, and they say, "Well, I heard you upgrade the firewall." Yeah, well, when did your problem start? Yesterday. When did you upgrade the firewall? Last week.
Yeah.
It's not the firewall. It was working fine. We did our testing. Your boss signed off. It's all good. Just because you heard rumors that the firewall was touched,
but
doesn't mean that all your problems can be blamed on it.
But to be fair, that one guy that does that one job every 3 months because he has a quarterly report to send out, just so happens he's
TPS
using,
reports.
He's doing this one thing every once in a while. You're not going to catch, and that's why, Jessica, I don't have time to test everything. Because there's one thing that somebody does every couple of, months or years or decades. I don't have time to wait for an annual report to come by just to figure out, oh, well, we broke that annual report. I'd rather just wait. No, excuse me. I'd rather just push forward, update the security, whatever it is, and when it comes time, January 1st, I'll be a little hungover, but I'll fix it for you and I'll figure it out.
Yes, we could back out the changes and get it back so that your thing's working, but we've gone so far backwards that we're going to have to just do it again eventually anyway.
Yep.
We have that in every upgrade plan, migration
never
plans.
roll back, only push
what's
forward.
our window that we can be disruptive?
Fix forward.
And then how long will it take to back out? And then how much troubleshooting time does that give us to accomplish whatever measurements you gave us, that if we can accomplish these, we just go forward. We don't have to back out. And then it's kind of work backwards. And I can't tell you how many times we've done that. I've done that. Others are doing it more now with firewall or whatever product upgrades.
What really sucks is when you get to that point where you're deploying those updates and none of the users notice until they go to connect to the VPN, and that update that I just shared, Microsoft has stabbed you in the back with an update that fucks up VPN.
Well, was working for 3 or 4 days, and then the keys expired, and the renegotiating failed.
Right.
But it was fine after we did the upgrade. It was all good.
Well, so one caveat I will make, I will give Jessica the full win on this, although she does not deserve it. Is that yes,
wow, notice how the little backhanded compliment there? That was beautiful. I'll give you the full win, but she doesn't deserve it.
She doesn't deserve it. What we developed was, yes, we're 100% patched in 10 days. And what we strive to do is 10 days from Patch Tuesday. But if you're somebody like Jessica and you're just not quite comfortable enough, or, maybe skilled enough, maybe educated enough to pull the trigger, then you can wait. So our platform is Patch Tuesday through the following Tuesday. It's technically 7 business days, or 7 calendar days.
I think I counted your shots at Jessica, significantly outnumbered your pats on the back.
that was on purpose. But no, if you take our 7-day plan,
that's why I just raised my hand. I was trying to defend her.
Yeah, well, she
Chivalrous Joe.
She likes to incite riots. So no, she gives me crap for this all the time. But our 7-day plan starts Patch Tuesday, ends the following Tuesday. We're 100% patched. If you want to just be a little more comfortable with that, start a week late. If Patch Tuesday is on the 8th, start on the 15th, and you're done by the 24th, or whatever the hell the next 7 days is. Because, God love them, Microsoft is horrific at deploying updates, and they should be horrific at it because they have billions and billions of dollars and employees and computers and all these problems. But if you don't trust Microsoft, then just wait a week, let the Reddit test happen, and then they will deploy the updates to the updates, and then a week later you can deploy everything, and you'll only be 2 weeks late.
Name a vendor with that wide of a footprint that's any better.
Yeah, they don't exist.
It's right. The first check, a wider footprint. Yeah, no.
No.
Hey, I would like to point out, you cannot roll back Linux patches. That's all I gotta say.
Yes, you
You
can.
can uninstall. No, not inherently. You can
Snapchat.
either uninstall the package and install an old version of the package, but you can't just uninstall and update on Linux.
Might depend
Can
on
you
the
just
distro.
snapshot before you update and then go back?
That doesn't count.
It's effectively.
I mean, I agree with you. It's not uninstalling the patch. It's just reverting the machine to an earlier state. But
Semantics.
But that again
point
comes
is,
to having
yes.
to have been proactive with your backups or your snapshots.
Well, no, the point is that there's workarounds, right? But there is no like
Reinstall.
undo button. Like,
yeah, we had somebody delete the Etsy folder on a web server that we had one time, and I told them it's all good until you reboot. Just don't fucking reboot. And yeah, it was terrible sysadmin that we had, but true story.
All right, should we wrap this up, folks?
God.
Only if Eric's ready to.
I'm yours. You know, I again, it was a lot of fun for me. It was kind of a definitely a bit different. I like doing different. I like kind of rolling with the punches and changing what I'm doing on the fly anyway. So this was kind of cool for me. I appreciate the opportunity. This was fun. I hope I added some value, but it was really just discussion topics, and it definitely went in that route of discussion, and it was pretty cool for me.
Eric, I have a question before you part. What's your
Sure.
what's your go-to trick? Like, what's your go-to like incept the mind of the person you're talking to, as a VAR or VSR or whatever the acronym is now. Like, what's the like? You're like, I'm down on my luck. I gotta do it. Like, I'm going into old reliable,
What's your Jedi mind trick?
and I'm gonna.
I will. Wow, it's a great question. I don't think I've been asked that because I don't have one. I'm not a Jedi, so I don't have a mind trick. But I think if I were really introspective, a lot of it is my kind of endless optimism,
Okay.
and having been in IT for I won't say how many decades. In spite of that, I'm still an optimist because there's almost always a way. You know, there is a way to accomplish just about everything. It comes down to, you know, how much turmoil, how much money, how much sweat equity, whatever it's going to take. There's a way to turn almost anything into a yes. It's a matter of what those caveats are, what those exceptions might be. But knowing that there's always a way, I think, and being optimistic about that and being able to find it makes me go into any. I've loved being on calls where I'm brought in as an engineering resource or as a pre-sales resource, and you're immediately hit with an objection. I had one that I hate VARs. Just so you know, I want to take everything direct. VARs serve no purpose. I just want to deal with the vendors. And at least he was right up front about it. We sat down and talked, and this was many, many years ago. I wasn't as seasoned as I am now, and I was kind of a deer in the headlights. But I said, okay, well, I'm here. I could turn around and walk away. Nobody'd blame me. Just leave with my sales rep and say, okay, yeah, sorry, that guy said he didn't like us, so we left. Or I can listen to him and learn why he doesn't like VARs, what bad experiences he's had, try and understand those and say, well, yeah, that must have sucked. And then try and say, well, we don't do that. Or you know, try and turn them around. At the end of the meeting, we walked away with a handshake and appreciation, and we understood each other better because I wasn't just overwhelmed by the obvious and completely unashamed bashing of what we do at a high level, but from a bad experience with bad VARs that just focused on the R and added no value. And he didn't need them. They weren't valuable. And that's what he associated VARs with. And it became a lesson to me of, there are people out there who think they hear VAR, they just think reseller. They hear reseller and say, why do I need you? You're Best Buy. I just want to go right to Samsung or Sony or whoever and buy that thing directly. what do I need Best Buy for? But people know they need Best Buy because they want to be able to shop around and look at a few different products and maybe talk to someone who's got that TV at home and see, how are the viewing angles really, as opposed to just the specs and order it online. So there's a purpose if you use it that way. And I'm again kind of veering off tangentially here, but just being optimistic and smiling and trying to find the upside to most things. And maybe it's also a fatal flaw in some cases, but
I love that endless optimism.
don't go in feeling defeated and dejected. It helps me, at least. Sorry.
I used to tell my old CIO, with enough time and money, we can do anything. I feel like that's endless optimism too.
If only we had unlimited time or money.
Exactly. Yeah,
Of a fashion,
in every situation.
Of a fashion, everybody that works in security is endlessly optimistic, right? I mean, going back to the beginning of your presentation, we're playing defense in baseball and we never get a chance to play offense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a matter of whether or not we're going to win. It's how many innings can we go before we lose.
How long can we survive before it ends?
And
But
how many extra we still show up to work every day, and I've been helping organize Colasec for, God, has it been 7 years? Tell me it hasn't been 7 years.
That's what you said last year.
I don't know.
It's his 15th, 29th birthday too, right?
Sure. It's all about moving the needle forward, and the needle's always trying to go down, and we just keep nudging it back up. And as long as we can get up in the morning and try again, then we'll have a career. So
I think when you accept that there's no such thing as 100% security, you look at things a little bit differently, right? It's not our jobs as security professionals to ensure that everything is 100% secure, because it doesn't exist. It's our jobs to make the cost of getting to that data more than the value of the data itself. They'll give up and move along.
I can't keep the hurricane from hitting here, but what I can do is make sure that we're prepared when the hurricane does make landfall.
I think you talk about the equations between risk and threat and vulnerabilities. You'll never eliminate threat. You'll never eliminate vulnerability, but if you can reduce them to such a point that your risk is minimal, you can sleep a little bit better. It's
layered security. Now, I've always been a big fan
control
of
what you
security.
can. Yeah.
I like to think of the bear analogy, where it's like, you don't need the best security.
God damn it, Mackenzie.
But you just need to make sure your security is better than everyone else's, because then
That's
they'll get hacked.
Not even everyone else's. You don't have to be the fastest gazelle. You just have to be faster than the slowest gazelle. The problem is, once he gets caught, now you're the slowest gazelle again. So if you can be faster than the slowest few, you're better off.
Criminals are lazy. Like, if you got just a little bit of perimeter security or whatever, they're just gonna go to someone else, like Tim's Hospital or whatever.
I'd say that's always been the case, except in my last position, where you get nation states after you and stuff. People that are financially motivated, make it more expensive than the next guy, they'll move along. But when you're in certain situations where you have people with unlimited money that probably have unlimited time too,
just learn from Sony. Learn from Sony and don't piss off North Korea.
When you deal with nation states, it's like a different playbook. Like, it's an entirely different cybersecurity thing.
Yeah. The whole 100% security thing that I preach, and if it's more expensive, they'll move on. I always believed that until I saw some of the stuff that I saw there, and I was like, "Fuck, these guys don't care about money."
I mean, they get people to dedicate their entire lives to moving to your country and then integrating into your society and then securing security positions in the government, and then marrying people and then having children and then stealing all your state secrets. So it's there's a limit to what you as a security professional can do to combat that.
Yeah, I mean, this didn't happen to us, but it happened to someone else. They were getting the shipment information out of their ERP to track where guns were being shipped to weapons depots, and they could correlate those weapons depots to troop movements in the Middle East. And whenever we saw this was Defense Security Service that came in, and we were talking about some of the stuff, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" I never even thought of anything like that, and or even how they would correlate, weapon depot shipments to troop movements, and I was like, "These guys have a lot of time on their hands."
Yeah, that you just made me flashback to the was it Fitbit that one of the movement trackers,
the fitness
that
tracker thing.
the fitness trackers, that they were like, oh look, a military base.
They hit that one because it was the most popular with military guys. I guess they sold the fitness trackers on the PX on bases, right? So they knew that people in the military were using these things and being tracked, and it was a good way for them to map out military bases. That was another thing that we talked about with Defense Security Service.
Well, the discussion tonight
So-
has been fantastic. Oh, Jeff, you're about to jump in before I wrap
I was
it up.
just going to say, so that picture of David on his bicycle in the opening slide is him on Fort Jackson on his bicycle, riding around with a GPS enabled.
Prove it.
I've been there. I've seen that tank.
The discussion tonight has been fantastic. Eric, thank you tremendously for facilitating and leading our discussion. And thank you for letting us just wander completely off whatever reservation you
I'm glad I could facilitate or what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Enable.
Thank you for enabling our delinquency. We were always on the lookout for someone new to enable our delinquency. Here at Volosec.
Much appreciated. Enjoyed it.
Good. Me too.
But thank you all for coming tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again in February. I would love to say that we're going to do that in person. We had sort of planned on January being in person, and then, well, here we are. So we will keep an eye on what's going on with the COVIDs, and time will tell. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Let's
Thank you,
have it
everybody.
at a secret
Take care of
location
yourselves.
in February that no one can just, find.